What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today we're jumping back into some more Orcs Must Die Unchained. This time we're going to try to 5-star the docks at Eventide, and this map's a little difficult, so we're actually going to be going all out on like the usual trap setup. I think for the rest of the maps I'll probably still be using the same stuff, but here you're going to want some very specific things. Namely, floor spikes are good, but actually let me show off a couple of other things. We are going to be using parts, at least one. We have a debilitation resonator placed into our floor spikes, and for the most part, before you even try to 5-star this stage, 4-starring it is easy, and my best par time so far has been 11 minutes and 5 seconds, literally 5 seconds above the par. So I think that this comes down mostly to how much player DPS you can do. And I feel like that's kind of a bum rap. Like most of the other stages, I've been able to pass without having to highly level traps or anything else, and that's interesting considering some of those stages were in Rift Lord, and I was able to finish those a few minutes under par. But sounding more like griping, let's see what we can do to actually try to get through it. Either way, there's Max, and then actually going to grab, where is, oh no, I'm sorry, this is actually what I wanted. The physical trap costs down. Now the debilitation resonator actually increases the damage that all physical traps deal, so having more physical traps is a good idea. Now I'm going to take wall blades, floor spikes, going to drop the brimstone, and instead of the brimstone, just because with the debilitation resonator, brimstone doesn't become quite as good at DPS as the floor spikes are. We are going to grab some boom barrel rollers, and you'll see why those are interesting in a few moments. And we are also going to take, where is it? Ceiling ballista. So all traps dealing physical damage. Most wall and ceilings you're not going to be able to make good use out of, so don't worry about those too much. Really just focus on making sure that you can get the damage dealt where you can. And I think other than those, we should be pretty good. Although I kind of want to take this too. Floor scorchers, just because in some ways they do become like really useful. Either way, as far as these, this is good. Starting with bonus experience at the beginning of the map helps my damage to scale up quicker. We don't need lifesteal. We're going to focus on just actually being able to deal really solid damage. Anything that boosts damage is good here. The enemies that you'll be fighting are going to deal a lot of physical damage, and they're going to be heavily, like, have a lot of HP and armor. The main things that you'll have to deal with are trolls, and in addition to trolls, you will have to fight a lot of ogres. So this covers all types of trolls, all types of ogres, and those are the things that you have to deal the most damage to. Since this stage relies heavily on player DPS, I think that is probably the best choice going in, and let's see how that works out. Alright, so you'll see that because I took the overachiever trait, if you look at my experience bar, it's a third filled already. It requires 1500 experience to level up, and that gets divided by the number of players actively in the game, so it's pretty solid. It also gives me a bit more movement speed, which is important because the unstable rifts on this map spawn very erratically. Also, my trap cost will be super low because of the...
I'll just leave this right here.
Oh wow, I can't actually place anything up there or there. My trap costs are going to be super low because of the other perks that I took, which reduce the cost of traps that deal physical damage by an additional
I'll never notice this.
15%. So Max will have super cheap traps, and I get to build all of this really quickly. Now, if you don't have these particular traits and like traps, or you have like traps that may deal a bit more damage, feel free to use those. Level 7 floor scorchers are amazing for bringing the enemies down, as well as level 7 spikes because of how rapidly they re-trigger. But the debilitation resonator is probably the most important part of this. It causes the spikes to deal so much damage over a short period of time that most enemies will just immediately get themselves killed. We're going to let that happen. Alright, we got aim to please already because these guys are dying. Very good thing. Alright. Okay, so this is working out pretty well. Now, if you want to Unchained often, you can place a bunch of tars. I prefer to actually have the traps do what they can. So that should be the end of the map. I'm going to mash C just in case there was anything else to
Cut one.
have us forced into doing anything. Whoops. Didn't want to place the boom barrel roller yet.
I'll never notice
I wanted to place that. Now, we'll also place a flame sprayer at the end here.
I'll just leave this right here.
And then another spike trap.
Almost hurt myself.
That will just make sure that some of the enemies that are going to be passing through won't have much HP when they get over here. Okay. And as the enemies start to come through, because of their HP values, we will murder them. And then we have enough cash to go and throw up the barricades now because we have a ton of money. Now, that doesn't finish everything. We still want to get these up. So any ballistas that you have, whether they be dragon lances or the actual ceiling ballistas, should go up there. Alright, and then the floor scorcher there will be able to burn anything that sort of starts getting along. Alright, now we have this guy. Let's have the floor scorchers put there, and then
Unstable rift is opening. Destroy it.
that was a lucky location for this to spawn in. It can spawn down the stairs as well, and that's the worst location for it to spawn. So we get to heal our DPS and actually not have to run around and miss shots like we would usually. So feel free to back away if the enemies start getting closer and you are not gunning them down immediately. That way the traps get to contribute to your DPS as much as they can. That's how you get the most DPS in many situations here. Alright, and then we want to basically just make sure that any big guys that come around get murdered as soon as they possibly can. Alright. Now. Whoa, still alive.
Whoopsie. Almost hurt myself.
About 3 minutes in. Well, it'll be about 4 minutes in once that's actually done.
I'll never notice this. I'll just leave this right here.
Alright, and those are the spikes that we have to work with at the moment. Now, because because we have our Unchained, and we actually have a boss, and we have another Unchained pickup, I'm just going to let that fly. And it was IV2, which makes that particularly advantageous. Had it been someone like Bianca or Hogarth, they would have been a little bit hardier, but being Unchained, they still are going to die. Now, if you don't have an Unchained pickup, feel free to try to save it. That almost got me killed. Heart fluttered for a little second there. That would have been like a complete waste of time in DPS. I would have had some serious issues with that.
Whoopsie. Almost hurt
Okay,
myself on that.
now those guys probably will barely be able to get around that setup. And it doesn't look like these have actually spawned yet, so let's go back up top for a moment. Oh, now they're spawned. Okay. Big guy down. Oh crap, they are very much making it through there.
I just keep getting better.
So the main thing to do is just to make sure that any of the heavy enemies really don't get through. Now, I'm using burst traps with the wall blades instead of grinders. You're going to notice that it tends to leave holes in the enemies, but holes in the enemy's formations, I should say, rather than just dealing a ton of damage outright. The grinders sort of more systematically deal their damage, so things may be able to get through and not necessarily be dead, but be weakened. Grinders are probably a slightly better choice if they're maxed out, but because mine are not, I'm going to be using the wall blades as their burst damage likely actually works a little bit better for the enemies that are coming through here. Now we're almost finished with the ballistas down there.
An unstable rift is opening. Quick,
of course
destroy
it is. So, sent him down here. That was again somewhat lucky. If I had to run from the top, that would have wasted a bit of time. I had to deal DPS on these guys. And we got another Unchained. So, that's probably even a more advantageous position. So, this is probably going to turn into how to luckily 5-star the docks at Eventide just because of how random this stage is. But essentially, it does just boil down to needing to be able to deal a high amount of character DPS. Wall blades don't really work too well here, so boom, barrel roller. And we're going to wall blade up this area too. Keep the spikes going so that you keep that damage happening. Alright, and just make sure that that guy dies. If he does, you're A-OK. Alright. Alright. We just need you dead. Alright, they were nice enough to start the next wave for us, which is great. Now starting the 8th wave with over 3.5 minutes left may actually work out. We'll see. Have persistent now, and we're going to put our last one of those up. We can actually toss a few more in here, as they'll be able to fire at enemies going around the corner. Now we have Ticklick coming up here. Ticklick's not particularly dangerous as long as you can prevent him from stealing too much of your HP and regenerating a lot of his own health. But just make sure that you kill everything that's at the top here as soon as possible. The more damage you can deal, the better. And again, having that bonus ogre damage and troll damage is helping me out a ton. You guys might not realize it immediately, but it is. So, these guys are going to die before they even manage to get off this ramp here. Got a mass C immediately, and we're going to have about 2.5 minutes for the last wave, which is pretty much right on target. 240 is probably the best that I think you can manage with max. I may be a little bit off there.
An unstable rift is opening.
And now, while that wasn't the best location, being able to get up here while I still have max is perfect. Alright. We're just going to fire down on these guys. And I don't think anybody else is really going to make it off of that clearing. With the ogre pretty much gone, I'm going to go down and see what I can do to add some more damage to this area and make sure that these guys don't really make it. I think the combination of all of the physical damage is doing an amazing job of actually keeping the enemies on the bottom lanes killed. So, go gadget spike spam. Okay, that is the big guys gone down. Guys at the bottom should... Alright, they're all dead now, and we have about 1 minute and 20 seconds to finish, 1 minute and 15 seconds to finish the last wave. Which is right about on target. So basically, we have to make absolutely zero mistakes here. Most of the enemies that are going to be spawning are going to be coming from the top.
They've summoned a boss
I'll
minion.
never notice this.
So let's make sure that
I'll
all of
just
the
leave
damage
this
that they can
right
possibly take is dealt. That's a trap cap,
Let's just keep getting better.
and we have an Unchained. So gun him down, Unchained if we need it. Let the traps do what they need to. Got about 50 seconds left. Don't touch me, Mr. Orc. I believe that they were supposed to have a boss at the bottom, but that boss has died already, and everything that's coming out there also seems to be dying. I'm expecting a large enemy here. Well, we got about 10 seconds to go, and that's it.
Oh yeah, we're good.
And there we go. So I'm going to credit that victory specifically with the debilitation resonator. It pairing with all of the physical damage traps I have to increase their damage significantly essentially worked like me having level 7 spike traps and maybe level 4 or 5 of every other physical trap used. So if you have a level 4 spike trap and a debilitation resonator, if you use the traps there the way that I did, you should be pretty much okay. I believe that, let me see, of the other traps that I used, the wall blades are tier 2, which means they have a single 16% damage upgrade, so they probably function more closer to tier 5. The ceiling ballista is tier 1, so that acted as though it had another 3 levels on it. And then what else? I think that was pretty much it. So that's my solution. I haven't been able to do it without the debilitation resonator, and you can see because my previous part time was actually 11 minutes and 6 seconds. If anybody manages to do that with lower level traps, feel free to let me know. Like, I'd like to just see what sort of information or ability is even possible on that map. But like I said, it has one of the shortest par times in the game, 11 minutes and 10 waves, and with the additional like struggle of having enemies walk across untrappable terrain, I really don't like the way that that's designed, just because there's not much you can do other than just have like high character DPS. And that was the way that I have heard of most other people trying to get it cleared, and this is just what I feel works best if you want a more trap-oriented solution where you're not waiting for your account to reach a certain level just so you can deal a bunch of damage. Either way, I am going to switch back to the previous decks and try to provide other like equipment-less, or I should say less situational par times for the maps. So I'm going to go back to exactly what I was using before, and if I can't clear it, then I'll see what I can do about coming up with alternate solutions, same way as I did here. Either way, thanks as always for watching, guys. I hope this was informational or beneficial to you at all, but I definitely appreciate you guys watching, and if you have any questions or comments about this, especially since I had to use different traps on it, feel free to drop those in the comments below. I definitely would love to speak with you guys about it, and I always have fun doing so. But anyway, I'm starting to ramble. Thanks again, and until next time, have a good one, folks.